Okay, good morning. I trust you're surviving. We're doing good. So we've been covering a number of things. I know it feels a lot, especially the learning log, the reading is a lot that you have to be doing. But I appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to do it, and I hope you are doing it. And as you're doing it, I hope you are learning a lot from it. I know this would have been fun if we're doing it face to face in class, discussing it. There's nothing like having a class face to face. But because of the way your courses are set up, we were supposed to be doing this. But we got required to be doing this, to do it online. I hope we're getting the best out of it. So this is, I just wanted us to just review quickly some of the things that we have been learning, what are the different things we've been learning in this class so far. So these are some of the things that we've already addressed. So we started off talking about understanding teaching and learning. What is it? We defined what teaching is. We defined what learning is. And I hope that was a little bit informing and transforming in the way that we have been trying to understand what we meant by teaching, what we meant by learning, because traditionally we have a certain concept, a certain understanding of what teaching is, what learning is, but we've seen what it has to be. We looked at learning maxims, the different maxims there that we've been talking about. We talked about adult learners, who are the adult learners, the different principles for adult learners. We talked about learning styles, what they mean. We looked at philosophies of education. We looked at theories of learning, how humans learn, factors underpinning learning from Phil Rest, lesson plan writing, what should a lesson plan be like, what would be the different components of a lesson plan. We looked at learning outcomes, the 3 different components of a learning outcome. How do you write a learning outcome? And finally, we looked at facilitating effective learning, talking about expectation, the expectation cycle, and all of those kind of things. So the idea is understanding the different principles for it, and then moving forward into the practical part of it. How do we write my lesson objectives? How do I write my lesson outcomes? Okay. How do I design my lesson? This is after understanding the basic understanding of what is learning, what is teaching, how do adults learn, what are the different learning styles, what philosophies, what theories should guide the way I teach. Yemilutin background principles, how the human brain works, what factors, all of this are the principles and the theories that guide the way we teach. When we move into the practice of it, we begin to look at coming into a classroom with specific expectations from students, because the way the students behave and act and the outcomes you'll have will be determined by your expectations from the students. The higher the expectation you have, you will have proportional amount of return from the students as well. And then we said, okay, then how do you write your learning outcomes? How do you write your lesson plans? After doing this revision, we'll move forward to talk about instructional strategies. Okay, how should I teach? What are the different teaching methods that are available? And we'll talk about broad categories of instructional strategies. So let's quickly revise some of the things we talked about. So pause here for a minute. See if you can quickly jot down those 5 factors underpinning effective learning, or the factors that contribute to the way people learn. We looked at 5 things. Okay, you can move forward. These are the 5 things we saw: wanting to learn, needing to learn, learning by doing, making sense of learning, and learning through feedback. So I would like you to remember these things. What were these things? What does it mean, wanting to learn, needing to learn? These are motivational factors. Learning by doing the activities, making sense, let them see how it is appropriate, relevant for them, understanding what they are learning, and then getting feedback from it. All these are factors that contribute to the way we learn. And learning styles, we looked at different learning styles, and we have one of you presenting for us on learning styles. Format was one of them that we looked at. So if you can remember the format, what were those four types of styles according to McCarthy? Okay, so pause, see if you can test yourself for those ones. Then you will find this one. So according to McCarthy, it is imaginative learning, factual learner, common sense, and then dynamic learner. And this forms the natural learning cycle. So they begin by asking, why do I need to know this? These are the imaginative learners. And that also contributes to the way we design our lesson plan, if you remember. So the first question they ask is why. That is surfacing the need, showing them the need for it, convincing them of the need for the lesson. So you grab the attention. And in this case, when you try to get them to understand the need for learning, the imaginative learners appreciate that. And the question they ask is, why do I need to learn this? Then moving forward, it is the factual learners. These are saying, give me the facts. What do I need to learn? And then the common sense learners, these are the ones that are, how does this work? They are the hands-on people. They want to do something about it. So we have imaginative, factual, common sense, and finally we have the dynamic learners, and these are saying, what can this become? I want to go out and do something with it. What shall I do with it? What can become? So these are the four learning styles according to the McCarthy or the format style, and they are related to the way we could design our lesson plans. So you grab the attention, you give them the information, common sense, you get them to do something, you reinforce whatever they're doing, and finish off with what can this become? What can they do? What shall I do outside? This is their takeaway. And we have this brain. We looked at the brain, how people learn, how humans learn, and we broadly said the brain has 4 parts to it, and these are the ones. See if you can put number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. What did we call those 4? Okay, you can pause and then do that, and then you'll find out. We said the first one is the sensory area. This is where the outside input comes in, and then we have the integrative. This will be the temporal integrative cortex. Okay, temporal integrative cortex. This is, so the information from outside comes to the temporal integrative cortex. The temporal integrative cortex tries to make sense of it. What is this? What is this? And it's related to existing knowledge and tries to make sense of it, understand it. And once it is understood, then it moves to the third part here. This is the frontal integrative cortex, where it is saying, let's do something. What shall we do? And begins to plan what to do with it. And once the plan is done, then it is sent to the motor area for execution, for action part of it. So according to this one, based on this one, we have Kolb. He comes up with the learning cycle, his learning cycle, and he relates it to the brain, to the way the brain functions. And see if you can remember these 4 ones, 1, 2, 3, 4. What were those ones called? Okay, now you got to remember those ones. So we said the first one is the concrete experience. This is where the students will get to do something, experience the learning. This is the sensory area, through seeing, through hearing, through reading, through doing things. So they get the information, and once they get the information, it goes to the reflective observation. This is trying to make sense of it. Okay, so they have experienced it. What does this mean? They try to make sense of it. They try to understand it. They reflect on it. They relate it with what they already know. So experience just hearing to this video is not enough. But allowing the students to reflect on what they have been learning is important. As they reflect, as they make sense, as they understand it, then they move in the step of learning. Experience whatever they experience, as you allow them to reflect, as you ask them questions, how does this relate with what you have learned, or you tie it with something else. And then it moves to the third part. This is where we plan, okay, how does this work for me? How do I use this? How do I use it in developing my lessons? How do I use it in teaching? And finally, it is the active testing. The active testing is actually doing it. So this is the way we learn. So we have a certain experience, we try to make sense of our experience, and then we plan how we can use that experience, and finally putting it to practice. When you teach your students, give them the information, but don't leave them there. Help them to make sense of it, help them to understand it. And once they understand it, then you move forward and ask them, okay, how can you use this? What does this mean to the way you live your life? What does this mean to the way you relate with your family, with your parents? What does this mean to the way you relate with your wife? These are applications that they have to draw, what they can do with it. And finally, you ask them, okay, you go. You try this out with your wife. You try this out with your husband. I guess, yeah. So try this out in the way you teach. So that is the active testing part of it. So this is a complete cycle for the way we learn. And then we looked at Elmer's learning cycle. Elmer's learning cycle, it begins with recall, and again, I would like you to pause and see if you can fill up the rest of them. So you will find out after recall, we have recall with appreciation. This is, they are appreciating, they are seeing the value of what they're learning, the value of what they're experiencing. You're telling them some things, but they are attaching an emotional element to what they are learning. And they see, this is true, I like what we're learning. Okay, they should be able to say that when they attach a certain emotion to what they're learning, it is likely to move towards the long-term memory of our brain. So it goes to the short-term memory, if you remember, and then it moves to the long-term memory as we attach some kind of emotion to it. So we attach an emotion, and they understand what they are learning, and then they move to the third level where they're not only attaching emotion and are not just understanding it, but they are beginning to speculate, what can this become? What can I do with it? And then they go to the application, they actually do it, and what we said is makes Elmer's different from the other one, from Kolb, is the idea of integration, making it a part of your life. It becomes a habit. So whatever we're learning in education, whatever we're learning in church, whatever we're teaching, we desire our students for it to be a permanent transformation, a permanent thing, a habit that a person will do it constantly. Okay. Then when we are talking about learning, especially as we're talking about learning with adult learners, we said information is other people's knowledge. And there is a Chinese saying, we said, I hear, I forget, I see, and I remember, I do, and you can complete that. It will be, I understand. And the father of adult learning is believed to be who? And I hope you can say it quickly. It is Malcolm Knowles, okay? So these are some of the things that we talked about when we're talking about learning, especially talking about adult learners. Now, learning outcomes. Quickly tell me the three components of a learning outcome. Tell yourself the three outcomes, three components of it, okay? So it will be condition, performance, and criteria. Condition is under what circumstances do you want the students to do whatever you want them to do. And that is the condition. And the performance is the actual thing that you want them to be doing. And that is carried in the verb that you'll be using in your objective or learning outcomes. And therefore, you have to be very careful in your selection of your learning outcome. And then criteria. How do you know when the students have performed to the level that you want them to perform, to the level that it is acceptable? So learning outcome generally has condition, performance, and criteria. Sometimes criteria may not be there, but at least those two should be there. And you try to put the criteria as much as possible, because the criteria makes your learning outcomes as specific as possible and clear. So try to work on it, try to include all three of them. So condition, performance, and criteria. Examples. By the end of class, Okay, I was looking at the learning objectives that you've written, and some of you have done an excellent job with it, missing only on the criteria, but you've done well. Some of you were not very clear with it yet, and I would encourage you to go back and watch the video on learning outcomes. But these are some examples here. By the end of the class, this is the condition. The students would have listed this word here, verb here, listed is the performance. It is the performance. They would have listed. Listed what? Listed the 3 components. The 3 components, this one shows that it is the criteria. How many of them should they be listing? They should list 3 of them. If they don't list 3 of them, it's not acceptable. So I'm giving you as a standard for it, a criteria for it to be acceptable. So conditions, by the end of class, the performance, they would list. How many should they list? They should list 3 of them. Okay. By the end of class, the students, again, we have the condition here. By the end of class, the students would have explained. This is the verb. That's the performance. How much, what is acceptable of it? What each component of the learning outcome means. So they need to tell me each component of it. They can't just explain 2 of them. They have to explain to me all 3 of them. That's the criteria. Finally, by the end of class, the students would have written a learning outcome that has, so by the end of the class, this one is the condition. The students would have written, this is the performance. That's the verb, the writing. It's a higher level. It's an application level. So the first one listed was memory. Explained, this is comprehension. Written, they are able to apply it. Okay, written what? A learning outcome. Okay, what would make whatever they wrote acceptable for me? They should write write learning outcomes that has all 3 components. Okay, so this is a sample example of learning outcomes we looked at. Moving forward, we talked about lesson plans. A lesson plan has 4 parts to it. 4 parts. Broadly, begin, develop, conclusion. Begin, develop, conclusion. It's simple. Okay, begin, develop, conclude. In the develop part, we do 2 things. It is giving the information and reinforcement. That means in the beginning, you grab attention, and then you give the information, the facts, the content, obviously in a creative way, and then you reinforce it. You don't just leave them with the information, but you get them to practice it, to do something with it, to help them to comprehend, understand in depth, what can this become, how does this work, how does this relate to my context, those kind of things. You get them to do something with it, and then you conclude, you say, okay, now that you have done this, what can you do with it? How can you apply it? That will be the conclusion. That will be the takeaway. So begin. In the begin, we have the innovative learners, the imaginative learners. Why do I need to know this? You grab their attention. The information, this is the factual learners. You give them the information, you give them the facts. What can this become? How does this work? The common sense learners. And then at the end of it, the dynamic learning. So that gives us the natural learning cycle. All learning styles will be addressed in that way. But generally, as you develop your lesson plan, you begin with, how do I grab their attention? That's the begin. How do I give them the information? How do I reinforce whatever I'm teaching? What can I do so that they can understand it in depth? They can personalize it. They can see how they can apply it. And finally, how can I conclude it in such a way that they are motivated to go out and apply it and use it? Okay, so that's the lesson plan. Finally, we talked about facilitating learning, and in there we talked about this expectation. So the cycle, it begins with teacher's beliefs, your belief about the students. What you believe about your students will determine your action towards your students. So if you believe your students are excellent, you will prepare well, you will come extremely ready for it, and your preparation and your attitude, your work, will determine the students' beliefs about themselves and their capacity. So when you believe the students are top-notch, excellent students, you will prepare with that way. When you come into the classroom, you treat them in that way. When you treat them in that way, they will have a certain belief which says, I am excellent, I can do these things. You raise the standards for the students. So their capabilities, their belief of their capabilities will be up. And when their belief of their capability is up, then they will act in that way as well. Their actions will also be up. And finally, the outcome will also be up. So your attitude, your expectation of the students determines the outcome of the students. So these are the things that we talked about. And hopefully this is helpful. I encourage you to go back and see some of the videos that we've already done if you need to remind yourself. Bless you. And so we move forward now. I'll stop this one and move forward to the next video on instructional strategies.